You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Projectile Warehouse. Find your perfect projectile. And now, over to your hosts.
Hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. This is episode number 22. My name's Rusty, and with me for this show is Andrew over there, otherwise known as Darth Vader.
How you going, Rusty?
Good, mate. Next to me is Greg. How you doing, Greg?
Yeah, good. Self?
Excellent. And for tonight's edition, we have Daryl, who has been on the show before. How are you, Daryl?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, Rusty. Yeah.
Excellent. Daryl's business is Meplat Firearms Services, who he's appeared here before with under an interview, but tonight he's part of the discussion panel, or whatever we want to call it. Tonight's topic, assuming we get around to it, is load development, which is what was meant to be our last episode's topic as well, but we just kind of got distracted. So we're not answering any questions tonight. We will move on to the topic, but there are a couple of matters of business, I guess. How's everyone's week or couple of weeks been? Been good?
Yeah, as good as one can be for not going shooting.
So pretty terrible then?
Yeah, boring.
Greg hasn't got any guns at the moment? So
No, I've got a 223, but it's not even sighted in at the moment, so yeah, bit out of shape.
Yeah, right. Daryl, have you been shooting?
Yeah,
you did go shooting.
I did get the opportunity to hit some steel with my 375 on the weekend to check out or test out some new steel plate and fire form some loads for my 416 as well.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Well, I guess I have to. I've been shooting a little bit, which is good. I picked up my Ruger Precision rifle, which I've been talking about for a little while, and I've picked that up on Friday. Today is now Tuesday, and I've put through 200 rounds through it, and to do my my velocity testing, and no real noticeable difference over those 200 rounds, realistically. Actually, I was hoping for a velocity increase, and it's done the opposite. It's actually gotten a bit slower. Anyway, I'll document all that stuff and actually put it out there so the information's there. One rifle's not conclusive enough, so Greg, you're going to do a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll do the same with the 6x47 when I get it back, and we'll compare notes.
Absolutely, and then I'm sure someone else will have a gun at some point, and we'll do the same thing on that. See if we get some data on it.
And Rusty, what's your initial impression of the Ruger Precision rifle?
Yeah, it's. I guess the qualifier is for the dollars you pay. It's really good. I mean, you guys have held it tonight and had a bit of a play and cycle. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I like it. I think you're right. For value for money, it's really up there. It's set up for competition, and it's good that you've got choice of calibers, all relevant to precision shooting.
Yeah.
And if it shoots well, and initial indications with your rifle at least is that it does, then I think it's a good buy.
I was pleasantly surprised. It doesn't feel like a cheap gun. It's solid and it's smooth. It's not fancy. I don't think there's anything on the gun that doesn't need to be there for what it's designed for. Seemed pretty good.
Yeah, cycling the bolt I thought was quite pleasant, like pretty easy to cycle. I went over it for, a lot of, workmanship. If it's lacking a bit, you get a lot of large gaps, and, I didn't really notice a lot of those. Thought it was pretty good workmanship overall.
Yeah, the folder locks up like it should, which was one of my concerns. I thought it might be a little loose, but haven't noticed anything on that. I really like the inline recoil. That means you're basically not dropping off target. Sort of anything, a couple hundred metres and beyond, really, you can almost watch it hit.
And that's interesting too, because your rifle doesn't have the muzzle brake on it yet. So if you can still see impacts quite clearly without the muzzle brake, that's a really good indicator.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably will put a muzzle brake on it, but if I was just going to keep it for me to shoot, I probably wouldn't. I think it's quite capable without, but because it's going to be used by plenty of people, it'll probably end up with one. Although the more I shoot it, the more I kind of want to keep it for myself.
Buy another one.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. Greg, can I borrow some money?
Yeah, sure, mate. I've got heaps.
Awesome. Brilliant. Daryl, just so you know, Greg has heaps of money, so
right,
you can certainly bring it up a few times through the podcast if you wish.
Sure.
Now, and aside, the guys from Vic Precision have their shoot coming up in end of June, and thought we'd get Jared on the line to have a little bit of a chat about the details. So, Jared, are you there?
Yeah, mate, I'm here.
Thanks very much for coming onto the show, mate.
No worries, mate.
Now, you've got your shoot end of June. What are the dates for that?
Yeah, 26th of June. So I think that's 3 weekends away.
Yeah, no, it's not far away now, is it?
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, brilliant. So for anyone listening, where do they need to go? What do they need to bring? What's the story?
So, again, we're at Castlemaine Rifle Club in Castlemaine. So all of our matches are held at the Castlemaine Rifle Club for the minute.
Yep. How far out of Melbourne is that?
Just over an hour.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all then.
No, it's not far. It's just straight up the Calder Freeway on the way to Bendigo.
Yep.
So, yeah. And what to bring? Well, pretty much, if you're planning on shooting, you just need your match fee, shooter's license, and either an NRAA, so VRA, membership card, or SSAA membership card. And that's it. Then just your rifle and backpack.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that in terms of rifles, I think we've covered that on the other show. We chatted about which, if anyone's hasn't heard, head back and have a listen to what Jared and the guys over there in Vic are doing. But a bit of a brief summary. What do the guys need, or is it pretty much anything?
Yes, it's pretty much. I get a lot of guys contacting me asking about what gear they need, and they're all sort of thinking they need the top end stuff. Look, all you need to be competitive is a rifle that shoots around MOA at 100 metres,
yep,
a scope with adjustable turrets, and a backpack to carry your ammunition, a drink, a jumper, whatever else you think you need. That's it. The beauty of what we do is that it's all about you, the shooter. It's not about your equipment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, a lot of us do have pretty good gear, but you don't need it to shoot well.
Yeah, that's certainly true, isn't it? You can shoot very well if you know your gun well, you do well. But otherwise, even if you get out there and just have a go, that's
it. It's all only one person can win, so the rest of us are just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about having fun, and it is still new, and there are a lot of things popping up around the country in different states, and the only way they're going to gain popularity is people turning up and shooting, having some fun.
Absolutely, if we get along. How's this? This is your second event for the year, is it? Or
so this is match 2 of the year.
Yep.
So at the minute we have opened up pre-registration. Okay. It's not something I ever thought we'd have to do, but there has been just so much interest in it that we just opened up pre-rego for anyone that knows they are definitely coming. They can guarantee themselves a spot in the day if they pretty much just prepay that $50.
Okay, and how do they do that?
Get in contact with me through the website or Facebook page, or my info's on the flyer, and then I'll send them out an information email.
Okay, and what's the website?
Victorian Precision Service Rifle Series. So it's a new website we've only just got up a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
It's actually Glenn Roberts from Precision Shooting Australia got me onto it. It's just a free website builder, so
yeah, nice.
Couple of hours one Sunday night, and I had almost the whole website done. So
yeah, right.
It's good just to get that info out there. Like there's a lot of info I've put up on Facebook that it just gets lost.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
You know what I mean? Through the endless posts, and I found I was getting people asking me the same questions over and over. So having that website up sort of
puts all that information in one spot, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the site, it's still evolving a lot. It does change every sort of week or two. I have a few ideas and I shuffle things around, but feedback so far has been pretty good.
Yeah, wonderful, mate. And so, so jump on the website if you're going to pre-register, and people can rock up on the day, or maybe they...
Yeah, so it's just like normal, just turn up on the day. So we are capping it at 2 details, so that's 48 shooters.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure if we'll get that many people there, but like I said, there's a lot of interest. A lot of people do like to talk, and when it comes down to turning up on the day, it's a whole nother story. So, but you know what I mean. But if I'd hate to, it's just there for, if we get more than 48 shooters, we're going to have to turn people down, and I'd hate to have to do it. But for the minute, we'd rather cap the numbers and put on a good shoot than just have too many people there and be too unorganised.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And if you can, guys listening, if you are going to get ahead, probably best to pre-register. That way, Jared's got a really good idea of the numbers coming along. It's going to make a better event, isn't it? If you got the heads up.
That'd help out too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And just quickly, the other dates for the rest of the year.
Off the top of my head, so we're running 4 matches this year in Victoria.
Yep.
The next one is 8 weeks later, August 28th.
Yep.
And the final match of the year is November 20th.
November 20.
Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Something around there. Check the website. That's a good excuse to go to the website and make sure that those dates are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Well, thanks very much. I'm glad things are going pretty well, and I look forward to hearing about the shoot in June.
Yeah, cool, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Jared.
No worries, mate. Catch.
So, unfortunately, Greg and I are going to be in Sydney that same weekend as the shoot, but we are going to head over in August and hopefully take a bunch of guys from Adelaide with us. So, if you're listening and you're from Adelaide or can get to Adelaide, perhaps not if you're from Melbourne, but if you can get to Adelaide from wherever it is you are and it makes sense, come on over and we'll do a bit of a road trip. So drop us an email or anything like that. Yeah, we also taking questions for our precision rifle products competition. So as I said, we're not going to do any questions from for tonight, but I do have some information on one of the questions that was asked last time. Greg, you got it next to you. Do you want to read out that first question that Rock sent in, which we sort of alluded to last time, but we've done a little bit more on that one.
All right. He's written, I have been intrigued and have yet to have the chance to confirm what point of impact difference would there be if you have the rifle on its side, lying 90 degrees at 100 metres. The reason for this question is I've seen few PRS stages in the US by where the shooter is forced to shoot with the rifle canted 90 degrees. Can you go through this and confirm where the bullet will impact at 100 metres and beyond, assuming your rifle is zeroed at 100 in the normal position? Note, bullet drop 63mm at 100 metres, scope height 50mm.
Right, so that was the question we had last time. We spoke about in theory and what we thought would happen, which we thought it would go sort of low and to the left, if I recall our discussions. Anyone confirm that? No, we can't remember what happened.
No, my brain hurt too much last week. I gave up.
Yep. All right, cool. So I just got back actually about 10 minutes before you guys all rolled up, and I tried this out, and what I found was it was low and to the left. One of the challenges was actually finding a position to shoot the rifle from, which securing a gun is one of the difficult parts. And the first one I managed to smack myself in the face with a scope, which I haven't done for a number of years, but happy to admit that happened. But after sort of rejigging sort of the shooting position, I managed to put a decent 3-shot group down, and it was about sort of 7 centimetres left and about 7 low. It was sort of fairly square. Now, this is running a 260, about 100 metres, 140 grainers out of it. So I put that into applied ballistics to tell me to tell it that the scope was offset and the impact point was offset. And then I took that data and was able to then apply what data it said, and got me back on target. Now, what was interesting was the windage data it was giving me, which of course I had to use elevation for. Having said that, I had a 0-stop set on that particular scope, so I had to hold rather than adjust. I only gave it half of what it was telling me, and that came up spot on. And what I found was interesting, so then I went around to 200 metres and shot it with the drop it advised, and it was spot on. But I kept the windage consistent. It was 0.4 mil the whole way out, bar wind that was actually sort of only really noticeable beyond 500 metres. And so I shot at 200, 300, 400, 500, and then 800. And apart from the 800, because I then had wind to factor into my additional hold as well, the other ones were all first round hits, and the 800 was a second or third, I think. But it wasn't the only additional that I had on that 0.4 mil was what the wind was actually doing at the time. So, which is different to what I thought was going to happen. I thought it would be an increase in windage, but it was consistent. So I don't know if anyone's got... I haven't done enough research. As I said, I only arrived back just before you guys arrived, so I haven't looked at... Perhaps maybe I've done a setting wrong or something like that, where the windage it was telling me to dial was not correct.
No, I'd be interested to see it on one more rifle, just in terms of just that slight difference at 0, at 100, just to see what the difference in results is, to see whether it does open up or whether you just happen to jag that nice parallel alignment. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'd like to sort of have a good play over a good part of a day rather than sort of just doing it fairly quickly. I'd like to have a good look at it and go through and sort of work out exactly what's happening and why it's happening.
Because the elevation all made sense as a dial. What it told me to dial, obviously in the windage dial using it did exactly what it should do in terms of that. The windage side of things was a little bit different, and what will be interesting, and Matt Butterfield from NT Practical Rifle challenged me to use a Magnum for it, so that will be the next one. And that was part of the challenge, is actually finding a comfortable shooting position. I shot off the bench and then also shot prone. And I think I've found a solution for that, but he wants me to now to do it with a 300 Win Mag, so I guess I'll have to do that. Can't let the challenge go unattended to. So, yeah. Anyway, so that was an interesting little step. So I did let Rock know about that one, and hopefully, sort of, I'll post some data and some details on that, as to what the findings were so far. But obviously, doing the test only on one gun will only tell so much. As Andrew said, to be able to spend a day doing it, and Greg over a couple of different rifles would be a really good way to do it. Is there any other business? We got anything else we need to talk about?
Load development, I reckon.
We're going straight into it. I like the move. Excellent. So, load development. That's as far as I've thought about what we're talking about tonight. But I guess, Daryl, you've probably got a fair point in the discussion. The reason we've particularly invited you, apart from having a really good understanding of load development, was your knowledge of QuickLoad. Which is perhaps something that's surfaced more recently in that load development process. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown what QuickLoad is and why it's relevant in load development discussions?
Yeah, absolutely. QuickLoad's an internal ballistics program. It has been around for a number of years, but it's still, I suppose, largely undiscovered by a lot of shooters. Yep. Someone, asked me if it changed any of my practices, and I said, well, QuickLoad changed my reloading life. It made a big difference to the way I did business when I was looking for a new load, especially because, as you know, Rusty, I've got a lot of Wildcat calibers, and there's no data that you can just grab. Sometimes you can extrapolate data from a cartridge in the same diameter with a similar size case, but it doesn't always translate. QuickLoad gives you the ability to predict not only load data for a given powder, but one of the best things about it is that it gives you the ability to cut down the number of powders that are selection and go straight to the powder which is most likely going to give you the best results. Now, it is predicted data. I've been using it for a number of years now, and I know that sometimes the predicted data is scarily close to your actual results in terms of velocities and charges. Yep. Sometimes it can be off, but like any, I suppose, program, the more accurate the information that you put in, generally the better results you get out at the other end. It's got a load library or a library of cartridges, so just about all the standard cartridges you can think of are in there, and similarly for powders and projectiles. So you'll find a whole range of powders and projectiles that you've probably never even heard of. There's especially a lot of European stuff that we don't see or hear about here in Australia. But the other thing that it does is it gives you the ability to put in custom cartridges and custom projectiles, or anything that's not in the library. So you just need to measure them up accurately, get all the dimensions, and feed that data in, and you can save those cartridges or projectiles. So for me, with Wildcat cartridges, I measure up the cases, put in all the dimensions and the case weight, and then I can use that cartridge to generate load data as with any other.
Well, I guess it'd be fair to say there's using sort of, I guess, traditional methods for load development or recommending loads. There's no other way to do it as accurately as this program that I'm aware of anyway. Yeah,
look, I mean, there's no substitute in the end for practical experimentation. You have to shoot the loads and see what works in your gun. Every gun is different, even in the same caliber, different chamber tolerances, different rifling, all the rest. So you do have to do the experimentation, but the best thing is it allows you to find the most efficient powder for that cartridge and that projectile combination, and starting off at 8 or 10% below what it suggests is the maximum pressure load, then you just do your load development as normal. I usually work up in increments of 2%, and perhaps cull that down to 1% as I'm getting closer to the max charge. And as I said, even if it's not 100% spot on, it will give you a safe starting load, and it will tell you which powder is going to be the best one. So it saves a lot of time experimenting with powders that aren't going to be right or aren't going to give you the best velocities in that cartridge.
I guess it's not just saving time with powders. I mean, personally for yourself, you would be recommending load data frequently for customers with the cutting edge projectiles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're a premium projectile. You don't want to be wasting them on on
far too
loads
expensive for that.
Loads that aren't even going to be in the ballpark. So
yeah, that's right. Cutting edge bullets are working slowly towards releasing a load book. Or a reloading manual for their projectiles, but in the meantime, a lot of customers say, well, how do I load these monolithic projectiles? Do I need to do stuff differently? Can I use data? Well, I use QuickLoad to generate data for those projectiles and send it to them, and that takes the headache out of doing that. So yeah, it's a good feature, and as I said, I've used it extensively now for quite a few years. But there's still a lot of people that don't know about it, or maybe they've heard about it but have never actually tried it. But I certainly recommend it.
So to step back, I'm sure we'll come back to QuickLoad again shortly. There's a number of different load development methods. Greg, you're about to get a new rifle. What are you aiming to use, or what are you planning on using? Is there a particular method
for load development? Yeah, pretty much how I do it, and I guess this is just the way I was shown, so therefore I've adopted it. But I usually start 20 thou off the lands in terms of projectile seating depth.
Yep.
And then for I don't actually choose a powder in any, I go to the ADI book, like usually, and pick a powder from there in terms of looking at the muzzle velocity.
Yep.
But I know with the 6x47 there'll be nothing in there, so that's where this software may well come into play.
Sure.
So I've got to work out a max min that I want to work within, and then I usually run 0.3 increments from min to max and try and find the highest node I can in that range, and usually I'll jump on that node, maybe do some 0.1s either side just to see how wide that node is, but I'm more of a node sort of guy rather than the sort of
always picked you as a sort of node guy.
Yeah, I'm into nodes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Right into them.
Most of the rich guys are.
Oh, good one.
You'll be pleased to know that QuickLoad lists 6.5 by 47 and 6 by 47.
There we
along
go.
with a lot of those other.
Does it have much node information? Because that's really what Greg's into.
Well, does it list optimal twist rates for those cartridges?
Because it'd probably come up with like a big red flashing sign for Greg's barrel, I suspect. No, anyway, so you're you just sort of now I've heard different terms for that. That's a ladder test, or is there a different? Because there seems to be 2 or 3 different variants of what a ladder test is. Darth, have you got any information on that?
Probably nothing worthwhile. I mean, when it comes to load development, I guess I've probably gotten lucky, really. I mean, I haven't really sort of worked up loads for a lot of factory rifles, so I haven't generally had real issues. I've sort of really come across loads quite quickly that have hit the velocity range that I want, and they're certainly performing the way I want, so I haven't had that need to really do a lot of fine tweaking with a lot of the variables like seating depth and primers and this and that. I generally, I'll have a particular brand of primer I like, and powder selection for one really, I mean, there's the optimal and the ideal that the software like QuickLoad will be able to give you, but it comes down to what you can get. I mean, we're very limited.
That's a factor, isn't it?
Any shooter in this country will know that what you might want, it's not going to be necessarily what you can get. So working around, that really culls down a lot of your options.
Yeah.
Like Vitavori powders now pretty much not available here, yet I found them to be, particularly in the 300 Win Mag, the best option. I'm going to have to work out what to do without them, I guess. But
yeah, I'm the same. The Vitavoro was my 3.8 and 300 Win Mag powder to go to, and I'm quickly running out because those things chew up a fair bit of powder. Yeah. Yeah,
so I guess in terms of having a defined technique for fine-tuning loads, I haven't really had the need to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I've come across the load quickly using sort of fairly much what Greg said. I research online manuals. I don't just go to one. I'll take as many as I can get. I have in the past used Reloader's Nest quite extensively.
Yes.
Which is, people's actual loads, not hypothetical loads. So
that's a website, just for those who are not aware of it. Reloader's Nest, a website, and they do number of different, or they list a lot of load data there, and they do two categories: verified and unverified. And correct me if I'm wrong, but verified is where someone has checked it, or a few people have checked it. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% on that, but presumably it's been checked by more than just the person sending it in. So,
yeah, it's like a peer review sort of setup.
Yeah, and again, there's so many variables. You can run those exact loads in a gun with the same barrel length, and you're not necessarily going to get the same results. So, but I mean, it gives you a ballpark figure of the powders that are going to be suitable, and then you can cull back the ones that we can't get here. And so, in the past, it's narrowed it down considerably. But
yeah,
one thing I've noticed when I look at posted reloading data online is that it seems like there's a push by some people to have the fastest load available in every sort of bullet weight for a particular cartridge, and I think sometimes that leads to people really pushing the limits on pressure and probably exceeding pressure, and so I'm always a little bit cautious when looking at the best possible load, because they may have achieved it safely in their rifle, but when it sort of bucks the trend, you think, well, don't know that I'd want to push that load in my rifle.
Well, I mean, I would always choose accuracy as the variable I'd like to refine the most. I mean, obviously you want to have velocity as much as you can within reason. If you've got two loads at work and one's 300 feet a second faster and it's still safe pressures, well, of course you go that load. But I will always load for accuracy, first and foremost, and then go up from there, basically. But often you find that point where the accuracy starts to open up when the velocity reaches a certain level anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I tend to do is always go with charge weight first and find the most accurate charge weight, and then progress on to seating depth from there. Obviously, I guess when you're doing load development, there's three things you're looking for. What's your maximum safe pressure? What's the maximum safe velocity? And where is the best accuracy? And, as Andrew said, you're not always going to get a happy marriage of optimum accuracy and optimum velocity. Sometimes you're going to trade one for the other, and I guess it depends on what your end result that you're looking for is. Obviously, for something like precision rifle, it's going to be accuracy as probably being the more important factor, because you can always deal with a slightly more curved trajectory, but if you haven't got the accuracy to match it, then I think it's a sacrifice not worth making.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's another method that I mentioned before we started, and that was optimum charge weight.
Right.
Now, I don't know a lot about it. I've not done it myself. Jared from Vic Rifles was telling me about it. He said a lot of target shooters use that method.
Yep.
And the general idea, and guys, jump in if you know more about it than I do, was that you find your maximum load, I guess, within a safe area, and then you jump back like 10% from that, and you work up. So from that 10% down, back up to your maximum load, you work up in steps, but you're not looking for a node, so to speak, in terms of group size. You're looking for a node in terms of MPI.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a very different way of doing things, and it's interesting.
What do you mean MPI?
So what you're actually looking at is your point of impact compared to your point of aim. And you're looking for, so you've got to ignore the group size completely, and you've actually got to look at your MPI and where it becomes consistent. Let's say it's at 1 o'clock at half an inch, and say you get that like 2 loads in a row, that's a node in terms of this way of doing things.
Mm. I actually, sorry, Greg.
Go for it.
In one of my previous newsletters, I actually put an article about optimal charge weight. And yeah, that's exactly right. So what you're doing is you're testing a series of load increments, and you're looking for those few charge increments that are closest to each other in terms of where the MPI is compared to your point of aim. And what you're looking for is, okay, if I've got 3 loads that have a similar MPI on the target, because generally as you increase your charges, the MPI is going to climb and quite often go diagonally off to one side as well. But if you can find 3 different loads that are very consistent, then what that's saying is in the middle of that load string, you've got a lot of tolerance to changes in charge weight.
Yep.
So small differences in charge weight aren't going to make a big difference in your point of impact. So what they're saying is take that as being your most accurate load, and then from once you've selected that, then do your seating depth variations and find out what will actually tighten that group up the most.
Is that a way of being relatively forgiving? So if your powder charges aren't quite, I mean they're good, but they're not quite perfect, you've got a bit of a buffer factor that is still going to put the bullet in the same point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Despite, that makes sense.
And not only that, but it'll also, I suppose, take into account some variations in temperature, because as temperature goes up and down, so too will your pressures. And what they're saying is that
that relates back to burn speed, does it not?
Yeah, well, look, it relates to a few things, but
neck pressures, all sorts of things.
Yeah, the point is that in the middle of that range, if the pressure's slightly higher or slightly lower, you're still going to have fairly consistent accuracy, and it's all to do with barrel time and bullet jump and rifle jump, and finding that load that works best in your particular rifle.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way of doing it because you end up with a load in the top 10% of your powder range. I don't know that it necessarily would have the tightest group, but I guess it depends what you're doing, whether that method...
Well, generally it should give you the tightest group because it will, show the least variation, I guess. So
that's MPI, not...
Yeah, no, but once you've found that consistent MPI, then as I said, then you're going to change the seating depth until you find the tightest group.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's just a different way of doing business, and it's an interesting one. I definitely want to try it.
And I put it to the test with one of my rifles, and it was a very different way of doing business. What the guy who sort of came up with this system is an American guy. He advocates that rather than shooting all your groups one at a time, you actually fire your groups one round at a time and you go to the next target. So, for instance, if you've got 6 different charge weights, you'll fire the first round of each charge weight on each of 6 different targets, and then you go to the second round and you fire the second round of each group, and then you fire the third round, and what that does is sort of, I suppose, even out any variations in environmental conditions, in barrel temperature, in any sort of factors that might be changing from group to group as the day progresses. So if the day's heating up, then you've got basically some consistency there across all the groups.
Yeah, and I think for that method too, that's some people's true version of a ladder test. Is that 1 round per load?
Yeah,
I've read a few articles on that method that they call it a true ladder test.
Yeah, it differs from the ladder test. The true ladder test is something that a bench rest shooter devised, and it involves shooting a whole range, say 20 different charge increments, and they might only be 0.1 or 0.2 grains apart, and you fire them all at the same point of aim, and generally you'll see them climbing up the page, but you'll see that the difference between some shots will be smaller than others, and what you're looking for is
clusters of
that's
shots,
right.
Yeah.
You're looking, and that's it's similar to the optimal charge weight process in that you're looking for where those clusters occur,